Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals, you guys, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. I don't know what happened over on LinkedIn, you guys, but there's a connectivity issue. We'll call it that. I'll look into it. So we're just live on YouTube. I just put a post out there over on LinkedIn. And I was saying that yesterday anyways, you guys. So please migrate over to YouTube. Check us out. And I'm not in studio either because my internet's out in my office again today. And I won't go 2 days without going live in a week, man. So I just had to run home quick. And we're going to just do it old school, you guys, because at the end of the day, nothing's perfect in business. And this is the reality of life. You just got to make shit happen no matter what. Corey Buchan, happy Thirsty Thursday all. James Courier, good morning to you, sir. They're both over on YouTube. And with that being said, I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I'm going to bring him back up here in a second, but we're here to talk about carrier vetting. We're here to talk about broker vetting. What can carriers do to vet brokers out there? And with that being said, I got the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Kyle Provost back on the show. Kyle, what's going on, brother?
Good morning. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, man, just dealing with punches left and right, man. I feel like fucking Floyd Mayweather out here today, man, just going back and forth and mixing out on all those jabs.
Yeah, there's a lot of them flying around this week, aren't there?
Dude, it's just nonstop, man. And then, of course, I swear trucking is the only industry where people really work before 9 a.m. because it's like where my studio is at, like the people who run the place don't get there until after 9 o'clock Pacific time. So I'm like, fuck it, man. We're just going to go back to the old school. And that's why I'm glad I invested in this mobile kit and stuff like that. So it's like, the audio, obviously it's not a Shure SM7B mic, but it still sounds pretty fucking good overall. This Rode Wireless, my go-to mics that I have.
Hey, I mean, I think it sounds great. Definitely better than my $60 webcam here. So,
dude, it's just that silky smooth voice. Steve Setka says, "Let's go. No internet equals a barrier, and it's hard, but you got to keep pushing." Dennis Everett, my man, good to see you, Dennis. Coming in over on, I love seeing everybody filtering in over on YouTube. Nick Erdman, what is up? He says, "Good morning. Let's go." But yeah, man. So we were initially going to try and do this on Tuesday, and it, had those internet issues out there as well. But it's more about bringing more awareness to the vetting side of things. I mean, with the 4th of July week, I'm calling it a week next week that's coming up. Freight theft. And a lot of stuff happens. Desperation starts to creep in to try and get loads covered. And I wanted to bring you on to talk about the technical side of things, and we're also going to touch on AI and everything else. But we wanted, the beauty of broker carrier, we wanted to bring an angle of how our driver friends, our carrier friends can vet their brokers this week so they don't get fucked and are stuck out there on the road or anything like that. So, man, what's one thing, because cybersecurity, dude, there's that big, whatchamacallit, ransomware or malware attack that happened in all the car dealerships, right?
Yeah. So I think what happened there was an organizational vulnerability, but it is something you have to be aware of, even if you're a small operation, that the more points of entry there are into your sensitive systems, the more vulnerabilities you have. And what people typically think of is all the usual stuff, like make sure your company cell phones require two-factor authentication to log in, right? Not just a passcode, but also Face ID or Print ID or whatever that might offer. Make sure your company laptops require 2FA or some kind of hardware token in order to be able to log into them, right? So that if you have a piece of hardware that gets lost, that doesn't become an entry point into your network or to your sensitive systems, right? There's Personnel training is a big part of it. Make sure your people know not to log into your classified systems from the public Wi-Fi at Starbucks, things like that. Right? So this is where your vulnerabilities happen, is that a person or a device that has access to the systems gets compromised. Usually it's a person. Sometimes it's just the device. Usually it's both. Right. But that's how an attack like what we're seeing on these car dealerships is how something like that would have happened. There's that Hollywood vision of the super hackers who just hammer away on their keyboard 500 miles an hour and then they're into your systems. But that's not really how it happens in real life. It's always a training issue, a personnel vulnerability, or a lost device that just has too much unfettered access to your systems. So everybody out there with an organization, as you grow, that's what you need to think about, right? When you onboard a new employee or bring in a new person, basic cybersecurity, information security is a fundamental part of employee training at every operation now.
So, because that's one of those things, because like our friends over at the NMFTA, they've really spearheaded a lot of cyber stuff out there and practices. And, and when I was at their event last year, they were saying that they're actually a lot of the hackers go after the smaller businesses over the larger ones, because they put it like this: it's easier to steal $1,000 from 1,000 people than it is to steal $1,000 from one person. And so they go out there with these phishing scams, because that's something that I see a lot, even in my company, is oh, leave a review, or and it's clearly a fucking deep fake email address and everything else out there. So it's like, what would you recommend, Kyle, with you having all the background that you do in everything? And I won't tell Kyle's life story for him, but he's very much ingrained in the IT and tech side of things out there. What could a driver do who, might be an owner op or a small fleet that's dispatching multiple trucks from their truck? They just got their laptop in their sleeper and they're out there trying to book loads. What can they do? Is it like getting a VPN service to hide their VPN? Like what does that look like?
No, that's going to be a matter of just being more careful and getting a little bit of basic training about how the internet works, and in particular about how domain names work. Right, because this is how phishing scams always get these guys. So what happens to carriers in particular right now, this scam where the double brokers are hijacking their identities in their official DOT records, is the scammer sends an email to the carrier that appears to be some sort of official business notice from the FMCSA. It'll say like you're being audited, or you haven't updated this record in too long, or we need you to verify your email address, or something that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And when the carrier clicks that link, what they actually get taken to is a website that the scammers created that is designed to look like the FMCSA's website, but it's not. Now, if that driver had the wherewithal to look at the URL right up there at the top of your browser, you can always see the URL. If you start off with the part that has a bunch of dots, like I'm looking at StreamYard.com, whatever. So that's the last part before that first slash. It'll say .com, .net, .gov, whatever it is. That's your top level domain. So if you click the link that says it links you to a DOT webpage, take a look at that URL, and that last part before that first slash should say dot.gov. If it says anything else, you're on a scammer website and you need to close out of that tab and don't do anything. Because what would happen is you use that login form, you put your DOT pin in there, and now you've given that scammer the keys to the castle. They're going to go on the real DOT website and hijack your profile and change your email address and change your PIN code. And now they've stolen your ability to go out and book loads, right? And that's, in my opinion, that is a true victimization that needs to be made more illegal than it is. It technically is illegal. Unauthorized access to a government information system is illegal, but I've yet to see one of these parties get prosecuted for it.
Yeah. So so just to bring this up, because like inside a broker carrier, we're out there constantly looking at, because like the scammers are always looking for new ways, right? Like they're not going to just do the old methods time and time again, right? Like they're going to look for other ways to get in. And you're bringing up a good point, right? Because they're looking for that. They're looking to get access to a carrier's information through the FMCSA's database. And like, just to be clear, like the FMCSA, everything comes from a .gov domain, right? Like, and it's very, very clear. That's something that I wish the
Yes.
FMCSA would do, or maybe you and I could do that, right? Find like the federal stuff out there of what people should look out for. And if it doesn't match up to that, like you said, get off that website. Don't put any of your information in there.
Yeah. Well, and to a greater extent, when you're on a mobile phone, just don't click links in emails. That's the best thing you can do is never click a link in an email when you're on a mobile phone. On a laptop or a desktop where you have that full screen browser and you can see the URL up at the top, you have that chance to look before you enter anything onto any forms, right?
Yeah.
But on a phone, just don't even take the risk.
Yeah, I think that because, again, people are always going to evolve. And I think that, and again, if you want to touch on this or not, like I think that we're starting to see some early next evolution of how scammers are going to try and get in and mess with people's information.
Yeah. Well, they do it to us. Like I was telling you a little while ago, I mean,
Yeah.
we're consistently getting 15 or 20 contacts a day from carriers who say that they no longer have access to the email that's on file with DOT. Okay, well, everyone who says that is a scammer, is
Yeah.
a dumb, is a liar, is trying to intrude in the system. I've seen one example where it was legit, and it was so very obviously legit. There was a company, we'll just call them BigBobsTrucking.com.
Yeah.
And their email that was on file with DOT was like Travis at Big Bob's Trucking. And they said, Travis quit and we want to use dispatch at bigbobstrucking.com. Okay, so
Yeah.
the same top level domain name, the same branded domain name. And I said, okay, if you can call me from this phone number that's on file with DOT, I'll switch that in our system for you. And they did. 10 seconds later, that was them. I sent an email to this dispatch at Big Bob's Trucking and they replied right back. So that was legit. That was one case where, okay, the employee that was getting those emails had quit. Right.
Yeah.
But if they want to change their email address to one that has a different domain name, that's not going to happen. We're not going to let them do that. They're going to need to do that officially with DOT first. And especially if they have a branded email domain name and they want to switch it to a free one like Gmail or Yahoo or something.
Yeah.
You can set your watch to that being a scam. You can bet your bottom dollar that that's a double broker,
No, definitely. And, speaking of that, right? So like, as always, I want to give carriers information on what they can do to look out for the scam stuff out there, because like we talk about all the time, man, especially when you come on, we want to put information out there that benefits the drivers here as well. Cause it's not just how do we protect the brokers, which we want to do that obviously, but like we want to protect the people who are the vulnerable ones who are taking the freight from these scammers that aren't going to get paid. And, I look at it like this. I think the biggest telltale thing, and it's really easy to fall into this around the holidays is I already see the posts all out there on social media about how get your money, rates are going to be higher and everything else. But start paying it. If you're a driver, all right, start paying attention. If you're looking for those higher rates, which again, I'm a capitalist, make your money, but say everything hypothetically was at, $1,700 on a lane. And now for the holiday, you're hearing $2,000, for example. There, it's a couple $100 extra, but then there's this one person who's like, I'll pay you $4,000 to do this load. And I think again, it's way above market, right? Like we need to use our spidey senses here because nobody is paying that much money right now. No legitimate shipper is paying double, triple above what a load is going for. So it's like, as appealing as that money might sound, I think that is always the biggest red flag out there. And again, I would say the second thing, if you're a driver and you're not doing this, start doing this right away. Quiz your brokers on the freight. Okay. What do I mean by that? If they can't answer basic questions, again, you guys, I move freight all the fucking time. Okay. I always know the commodity. I always know the piece count. I always know the weight. I always know the special requirements, right? I move a lot of open deck freight. I always know if it's tarped. I know what size tarps. I know if it needs V-boards, edge protectors, how many V-boards, how many, straps, all of that stuff, right? So I think that from my perspective, if you ask basic questions like that and they can't answer it, chances are they don't actually have the load. Okay. Because again, every bill of lading that I get for a shipment always has pickup address, name of the facility, contact information on there. Same thing with the receiver. And if for some reason it's a job site, I will find that information out and I will have direct contact associated with the receiver out there. Okay. So again, you guys, if they're not doing this, if somebody sends you a rate confirmation out there and it's lacking any of that stuff, I would not send your truck at all in those instances. Okay. Because those are the ones that you're going to find where you're going to show up and there's not going to be a load or they shipped it out and everything else. You guys, like, this isn't that hard. All right. People make this out to be so much harder than it needs to be. And it is basic information, right? It is quizzing them on that freight. Where does this load pick up? I would even take it right now, especially if this is a broker that you haven't worked with in the past. If you get the contact information from the facility, I would call them and verify that detail. Hey, this is the PO number. Is this actually scheduled to pick up at 3:00 today? If the broker gets pissed at you for it, fuck them. Like, again, I have people call facilities, not all the time, but it happens, right? And they will do and they verify that stuff. I will never get mad at a carrier for double checking or triple checking information, especially if it's a new relationship. I think carriers, you guys will be pleasantly surprised that you will be able to identify who is a real provider and who is not a real provider based on those couple of questions right there. Again, I've never got a bill of lading from a customer that doesn't have a weight, that doesn't have special requirements, pickup information, delivery information. And especially right now with the holiday coming up, it's going to be very appealing to think that a load actually pays triple of what it normally does, but it doesn't. All right. You got to be aware of that stuff.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, right? I mean, scams always involve weasel words, lack of information, excessive detail in areas where it doesn't matter, right? So when you watch for these telltale signs of somebody not actually being in possession of the information that they need to execute this job,
yeah,
you're probably at the very least you're dealing with someone who doesn't know what they're doing, and that's too much of a risk too, with costs being what they are right now. If a broker comes across as being sloppy, disorganized, unprofessional, dishonest, if they set off any of your red flags, just move on. It's not that desperate out there,
Yeah. No, and that's exactly it, right? And I think, like, I will say this, man, the driver community does a really good job of posting a lot of like the fictitious and phony bullshit that they see out there, and and another thing too, I want to bring up with all of the rate reductions that are like nestled into some of these carrier or these brokers rate confirmations. If they don't bring it up to you in the moment, like, again, if you're dealing with, because there are some priority shipments out there, like, hey, like, there is a crew or whatever this looks like, this is a production shutdown load, you are subject to fines of this amount. If this does happen, you'll know about that on the front end. But all of these nickel and dime fees that come in, I would call them out on it. I wouldn't fucking do a load with a broker like that says if I sneeze when I'm going 65 miles an hour, it's a $200 rate reduction and shit like that. They're so petty and they're so bullshit.
Yeah, I see a lot of those too. Or what's this trend that if you miss one location ping, it's a $200 rate reduction or $100 rate reduction. I mean, okay, so you drive through a tunnel during that 30-second window where things going to ping your location, and now you've lost 10-15% of your money. That's crazy to me,
dude. It really is, man. But that happens. That happens, man. It's very common out there where brokers are going to do that. And again, I always challenge everybody this, because I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a shipper. He's a long time shipper. He's been doing this for like 35 years, right? I asked him, I'm like, hey man, what if you found out a broker was reducing or had rate reductions on their rate confirmations that you don't actually enforce or you don't actually do? He says that's literally the fastest way to lose my business, because he's like, I would find out in a heartbeat, right? So you know what? Maybe that's another thing too, because like, frankly, man, I'm sick and tired of a lot of this bullshit behavior that's out there. If I saw one of those things and the broker won't go and didn't tell you about it on the front end, if I owned a truck, man, and I saw that on there, dude, I would probably call the fucking shipper. I would ask, be like, hey, why is there a rate reduction if this happens? Like, so if my telematics fails for 30 seconds, then I reduce my rate. I think accountability needs to fucking happen out there, man. I really do.
Yeah. And that's, that's up to your business acumen, and it's a judgment call on your part. Like, but I think there are a lot of activities and a lot of practices going on that shippers need to be made more aware of, because ultimately the shipper is paying for all this.
Yeah.
And they don't want their name or their reputation attached to shady business practices.
Yeah, I have just, again, man, I know that I can't speak for every single facility out there because I haven't worked with every single facility in North America. I've never seen this level of rate reductions ever in the entirety of my career. Out of all the shippers that I've worked with, I've never seen anything like this. Not on a every single load basis, right? Not at all. There's been some special things, right? Where if it's a high priority, high visibility load, that goes on, but not every fucking time. I think that some of these guys are turning and making up accessorials to try and pad their pockets some way so they can go in and, yeah, I won't get into all of that, the conspiracy theory on this show. Maybe on a different day I'll go into it. But so, dude, what are some things that brokers can do? Because, like, again, you guys, Kyle and I really wanted to put a free tool out there, and anybody can use this, right? Brokers, carriers, anybody can use a free tool to do a quick vet on a provider that they're talking to in that moment. So, like, what are some things that brokers should be on the lookout for?
Well, we've studied this issue pretty intensely for about 4.5 years now, and um, the conclusion I think we've reached is that you mainly are just looking for signs that the entity you're evaluating is either A, they really are a motor carrier who really does get out on the road and haul freight, or B, they don't.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. You can go into much more complicated layers of detail, digging into their insurance, digging into their BOLs if you have them available. You can compare their VMT to their number of vehicles. These are all great ways to develop an assessment of how busy or how quality a carrier might be. But if you're trying to just answer that yes or no question, do I think this is a double broker? Look for a clear-cut sign that they don't really get out on the road and haul freight. So what we can see here now, this is not the free tool. This is actually the logged in dashboard here.
Yeah.
But under the research tab, I put in this address. This is one of the biggest offenders. It's a little building in Signal Hill, California, that at one point had about 800 different motor carrier entities registered to it. But we'll just pick on one. We'll just pick on Stella here. So when you first click into this profile, so far nothing's really blowing up except for their recent VMT is out of date. Their authority's been active for over a year, right? They've been in business for more than 3 years. So these basic things are starting to pass. But then we get down here. Okay, if they have 3 years in business, over a year of authority, I guess it's not super far-fetched that with only 1 year of authority, they wouldn't have any inspections. But it's not great, and we're going to come back to that. Now, if we come down and look at their contact info, now we start seeing problems. Yeah. Their email is shared with 650 other carriers, their phone number with 640, the fax number with 385. Why do they even have a fax number? They haven't recently made any changes. As you can see, it's been the same since we started checking. But look, their email address says WTFFMCSA@AOL.com, right? They have a joke email address on file with the DOT. They've got that physical and mailing address that we really don't like. So we're going to pop over here to their safety tab. And when their safety map comes up, nothing, no inspections anywhere. Okay, yeah. How are you out hauling freight on an interstate operation model for a year and you just gotten lucky? You've never gotten pulled over. You've never passed by a mandatory weigh station. Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's come over here to this compliance tab.
And I would say, Kyle, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's a very, very important point to look out for, right? Because there are some trucking companies that don't get inspected for whatever reason, but they have, if you can drive 1 year and not even get stopped at a scale once, you need to start selling fucking how you operate to people, because that is such a slim chance that happens, that you never even got pulled into a scale. You never had a blown tire. You never had any of that shit. That's like that. So it's like when we're talking about that, I want to bring that out there. Cause like, again, man, I have friends that are carriers and they're like, we don't get pulled over, right? Like our shit's up to date and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And now this is what I show people when I give demos. And what Micah's saying there, that's why, especially for single truck owner ops or small operations, I try to remind brokers, don't lean too hard on that no inspections thing, right? If you've got less than 50,000 VMT, it is entirely possible that you've never gotten nailed. But if you're driving all back and forth across the whole country, the odds of it go up, right?
Yeah.
Now this is the compliance report. This part is available out on the free tool on the website. And this is what I show people during demos. When we come here to carrier connections, we want 4 empty tabs and then 2 full tabs for a legit carrier. But for a false carrier, what we're going to get is 4 full tabs and then 2 empty ones. And I'll show you what I mean. So they've got hidden connections with a bunch of other carriers on their physical, mailing, email, and phone number. Now, we don't like to see sharing there. We want those to be empty, but we want these last 2 tabs to have activity. Shared VINs means they've been conducting power only services, right? Or they've been using leased equipment or something. So watch this. All these matches, not one VIN overlapped with anybody in the last 2 years. Not one license plate. They haven't done one power only job. They haven't done anything. So that tells you just this evidence that you have based on these 2 screens that this entity, whoever they are not actually going out on the road and hauling freight. That's a double broker. Move it along, right? Now we'll come back and let me show you an example. 4023831. Now I don't know these guys. I just kind of looked at their stuff this morning. So we can see there's a little bit of red and yellow candy up at the top. They've been in business for less than 2 years, right? So it kind of makes sense that they haven't filed their VMT more than once. Now we do flag this suspiciously round number, right? Because if you're using properly calibrated ELDs, then you have the exact number. There's no reason to be lazy on your official government paperwork.
Yeah.
Right. We come down. They've had an active authority for longer than a year. That's great. No inspections. But again, if we look, 1 truck, 1 driver, haven't been in business very long. No inspections is probably fine. No safety rating is normal. That's 97% of carriers. There was a recent change to their phone number. Okay, but it looks like it was just a typo correction, so that's no big deal. Mm-hmm. No recent changes to their physical address, no recent changes to their mailing address, and they do not share any contact information with any other carriers. Yeah. Right. If we come over here to their compliance tab, we can see, okay, the only 3 items are those 3 that we already noticed. No hidden connections of any sort. Okay, so these guys are just new and they're not very busy, but there's nothing about this that would tell me to worry. I would get these guys on the phone and give them a shot, right? Yeah. And then we'll look at one final example of a big, successful, been around forever carrier. So these guys are called Load One LLC, 500 trucks, 500 drivers, all green. Their rate of out of service vehicle is average. Okay. No changes. They recently updated their email address, but it was from one person at the company to another person at the company. 0 reason for concern here. Look at their safety map. Nice, great spread of inspections all over the country. These guys are legit. 100% legit, right? So sometimes you can just tell right off the bat like that.
Yeah, and I just think, I'm gonna pull down this from the screen here. So as we're kind of wrapping up, I think that, because just for example here, Micah and her husband, they're a great carrier and they've had no inspections. Dennis Everett, he's had his authority for over 3 years and he hasn't been inspected. He's a great carrier. He's got a reefer based out of South Dakota. Mm-hmm. So I think that's like, there's been some clever marketing out there that has kind of hampered the broker from themselves, because again, that's a cause of concern to a point, but you need to look at multi layers inside of that to really identify what is going on. Because I think a lot of brokers, again, because they get hung up on one point, are missing out on phenomenal capacity for the long term. Yes, as Dennis said earlier, trust but verify. Same thing. If you like, I just think that there's some stuff out there people are just going to handicap themselves because again, and I say it like this as we're kind of wrapping up here. When the market flips, all right, when the market flips and all of these brokers are begging carriers to take their freight, you think these carriers don't remember this inspection rule? You don't think that they remember all these hoops that you guys are making them fucking jump through? So be careful about this, right? And I'm not going to say don't verify who you're working with. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. But you need to do more than surface level condemnation, we'll call it, on who we're working with, because eventually things are going to flip. And I think that the cat will be out of the bag when all of a sudden all of these requirements aren't requirements when brokers can't cover any fucking freight. So I think keep that in mind as we're going on out there. And Kyle, that's kind of it for today, man. How does it mean to reach out to you to find out more?
Well, my email is kyle@brokercarrier.com, or you can just search for my name on LinkedIn and you'll find me there. Either way works.
I love it, man. Well, hey, that's going to be it, you guys. And Sonny Sharma loves all the new updates on Broker Carrier. Sonny's a user of ours. So we're just putting that out there, you guys. But hey, we'll be back tomorrow. I might be at my kitchen table again if my internet doesn't get fixed. But you know what? Fuck it, man. We'll make it work. Welcome to the realities of business, you guys. It's not always perfect. But hey, as always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network will see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon. Dun, dun, dun.